Okay, thank you for joining me for today's rant. And the subject today is taking our land. And guess what? I'm back outside. It is beautiful, warm. It's like a spring day. It must be 60 degrees or more after over a week of just hardly ever getting above freezing and way down like 5 and 10 degrees at night. This is incredible. There's your weather report, but taking your land. And we hear a lot about that, possessing your promises. But I want to talk about one aspect of it and how it does apply to, we hear people talking about taking our country back. What does that mean? Taking it back from what? And you're making America great again. Well, what part of it was great and how are we going to make it great again? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And a very basic part of spiritual authority that we need to understand, that is so simple, so easy to understand, but what releases spiritual authority. And believe it or not, it is love. And it's as simple as that. True spiritual authority is released by love. Now think about it biblically. We always want to, anything we teach as a principle, we want to see it in the scriptures. And so what's the scripture for that? Well, Jesus felt compassion for the sheep, so he became their shepherd. When he felt compassion for those who were in darkness, he became their teacher. So you see that his authority was found on his love for the people. And when Francis Frenchman, I first heard him teach on that, and it just awakened something in me. I saw right away I could use this to determine where the Lord was calling me. I would start feeling love for a certain country. Like, I remember one of them was New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand, never thought about it. I heard a report, I think it's from Focus on the Family, that it designated New Zealand the most heathen nation on the face of the earth. Because it was only like 0.00 tiny point whatever percent Christian in the whole country. So they call it the most heathen nation on the earth. And something hit me with a compassion for New Zealand. And I told my staff, I said, at the time I was getting more requests for speaking and visiting churches and conferences and all than I could even process. I think at one time we were getting like 3 a day average. It's hard to read them all at times. But I said, look, if any come in from New Zealand, I want to see them because I feel like God's calling me there. I felt this just love for New Zealand rising up in me. So I started reading about it, studying it, and their history and things. And right away, I got some invitations from New Zealand, ended up going there. I still remember them, some of the greatest meetings I've ever been a part of. Boy, we had traffic jams in downtown Auckland, people trying to get into the meetings. We did this big tent revival. It wasn't us. We were being hosted by an awesome ministry in New Zealand, Trevor and Jan Yaxley's ministry there, and and others. But I was just one of the speakers. John Dawson was one. Lauren Cunningham was one. Lauren and I roomed together for a week. That was a lot of fun. Lauren is a case, man. I'd come in the middle of the night and he would have shorted my sheets so I couldn't get into him. He was just a prankster, and always, you couldn't turn your back on the guy. He's the guy who founded YWAM, you may know. But we had great times, but I remember that so many people wanted to get into those meetings. The Army had to come and bring tents and cots for people. It was just awesome. Winky Pratney was there, Dave and Dale Garrett, some of the great old New Zealanders. John Dawson, he's from New Zealand. And but the incredible thing, but anyway, over a short period of time, a few years, New Zealand had become about 20% Christian. And I think it was one of the most Christian nations in the world, because these weren't just nominal Christians. They were on fire, born again, filled with the Spirit, loving God, loving each other. Some of the most powerful and sacrificial Christians you've ever met in your life. Became one of the great missionary sending countries. For a period of time, New Zealand and Norway would switch off every year who was sending more missionaries out per capita of any nation on earth. But I felt like I had an impact there, and I had some words that came true and got, publicized throughout the country, and I think was able to help fuel the fire a little bit. But I knew it was, my love for New Zealand. Now why am I saying this? I've looked at some of the curriculums that are being taught in our schools today, especially about history. You can't believe how horrible their history is of our founding fathers. Not one good thing to say about them, and a lot of bad. They did some bad stuff. Everybody who's lived on this planet but one has done some bad stuff. But do you want to be remembered just for the bad stuff you did? And our founders, our early history as a country, things we did to the Native Americans, no doubt were some terrible, terrible things. But also some of the greatest things, I think, that have been done by any nation on earth has been done by our country, the United States. Some of the most noble causes, some of the greatest ministries and missions, still is. You go any disaster in the world, the Israelis are beating us there now, usually. They have such a smooth running machine for disaster response, but right behind the Israelis, you will see the Americans get there with everything they can to help people that are suffering. And I'm just so thankful to be a part of a country like that. I'm so thankful to be a part of a country that could have dominated the world as the sole possessor of nuclear weapons after World War II. And we said no. And we even expended our own wealth and resources to rebuild our enemies, Germany and Japan, and we turned them into allies, and now they're great republics themselves. They, I don't think are going to be subject to that kind of tyranny again. And we did that. What other country in history, when they conquered an enemy, didn't just take them over, just plunder them, take all their resources and everything? We didn't do that. We expended our country's resources to help them get back on their feet. Our enemies. Where does that come from? No nation ever in history's been that good-hearted. I'm just saying. You know what the one history book said about our leaders during World War II and after World War II? They were evil because they dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. Don't even mention that by doing that, almost everybody agrees, almost every legitimate historian, military leader of the time said that probably saved 1 million Allied lives and possibly millions of Japanese by just getting that war over. It's terrible what happened in those cities, no doubt. Sorry it couldn't have been done in a better way. I'm glad we had a president wise enough and decisive enough to make that call, make that decision. I think he made the right one. Pray that such devastation will make it so that kind of thing doesn't have to be done again. But what about the only commandment with a promise, which I mention a lot: honor your fathers and mothers, that it may go well with you and that your days may be long on the earth. How dishonoring of our fathers, of our founding fathers, of our literal ancestors. It paid such a price to build our countries as they are today, to so dishonor them like that in the history and not remember any of the good and only bring up the bad. That's evil. That is profoundly evil. Those who wrote those history books are evil. Those who are circulating them, promoting them, are evil. And we need to stop it. We need to demand, look, if you're going to use our tax dollars to educate our kids, we're not going to have you do it like that. I'm sorry. But we don't want to forget the bad. We don't want to forget what was done to the Native Americans, what was done to the slavery and all that other stuff. No, we want to learn the lessons from it, though. But we're not that way anymore. And listen, one thing every true student of history or historian knows: you simply cannot judge the characters of history by our times. You have to judge them by their times. And civilization, thankfully, has been marching on and dealing with some of these ultimate evils and ultimate situations, and which we need to be thankful for. And to keep that from happening again, we have to bring up the evil of the past, the evil things that were done. The scriptures do not cover up even the greatest evil by even the greatest heroes. It's candid, open, tells you what King David did. Still such a great hero. It's even said that Jesus is seated upon the throne of David. One of his most important titles was Son of David. And you better believe the Lord honored David and honored his fathers and honored his mother. It's something that has to be recovered. I am so thankful for the way things are turning around our country so fast, so profoundly. But they'll be lost again really soon, I think, if we don't recover some of the basic things that really did make America great, so that we'll be great again, so that we could do great things like rebuilding the nations of our enemies instead of just further destroying them. And, we tried that the first time, and our country, thankfully, was against the treaty that ended World War I, that just so penalized Germany, just so crushed Germany so it could never get off its face again. Well, what we got was Hitler. We reaped evil for that. And I think our leaders after World War II, they learned that lesson. They said, no, let's don't do it that way. Let's don't punish them anymore. They've punished enough. Their nation's been destroyed. Let's help them get back on their feet. Let's do good for them. And they did that, probably not knowing it may backfire, but it's the right thing to do. Let's do it. And they did it. Look at the great nation that Germany is today. And they're having issues now, no doubt, problems. And I think their force is trying to destroy Germany because it has a great calling and destiny for these times. But what's going to make America great again? It's not that we just become super wealthy. It's how we use our wealth. It's not because we're a superpower. It's how we use our power, how we use it. And I think to make America great again, we got to recover our heritage and our history. And we've got to honor our fathers and mothers. Thank you for listening to today's rant.